This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, rel-mar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and that is our website address for the radio show, www.xzoneradiotv.com. And if you'd like to find out all about the different programming we have available for you, 724, 365 on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, just visit us online at www.xzbn.net. By the way, X-Zone Nation, the final tally is in. The August edition of the X Chronicles newspaper was downloaded more than 7 million times around the world. So we're very happy with that. And we look at much higher digital download figures with the September-October issue of the newspaper. And why we do a September-October issue is because in January we have 2 editions of the X Chronicles newspaper, one for Christmas and then one with the psychic predictions for the year to come. My guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is Mark Muncy. He is the creator of Hellview Cemetery, a charity-haunted house in Central Florida that was so infamous it was banned by the city of St. Petersburg. An author of horror and science fiction, he has spent over 3 decades collecting ghostly tales and reports of legendary beasts. Eerie, Florida is his first work for the History Press. He lives in St. Petersburg, Florida, on the remains of an ancient midden, that's right, with his fiancée and illustrating partner, Carrie Schultz. Occasionally, he is visited by his daughter when they remember he still is there. Hey, Mark, welcome to the X-Zone.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Tell me about the city of St. Petersburg that actually banned the cemetery, the charity haunted house, because it was so infamous. Why would they do that?
Well, we did the haunted house for about 20 years for charity. Went through a few political administrations, and we were always the destination in St. Pete because we were free. We did it for charity, and all was good. And we got compared pretty favorably to the big boys, and it was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. We were when we first dug it originally, we found a burial site on our yard. We were digging a grave, and we found that it was a burial site. So we called the police, and they said, no, it's an archaeological site. Had an archaeologist come out, and they said, oh, it's an Indian midden. They're all over the place. And we're just happy it wasn't one of the lost cemeteries of St. Petersburg. And we're like, lost cemeteries?
There you go.
Pioneer cemeteries that had disappeared and had still never been found. Even to this day, a few are still missing. One of them was called Hillview, and the Tales from the Crypt fan and me said, oh, it's got to be Hellview. So we made it Hellview Cemetery, and that would come back every year. And we got a victim of our own success. It was, a few thousand people going through a neighborhood, and we handled it pretty well. But all it takes is one or two bad apples, and a couple neighbors were a little spooked by it. So,
but here you guys were doing something for charity. You were helping out other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the taint of Halloween, you know how that goes.
Yeah, I do. I still say Halloween is kept in business by the American Dental Society and, all the candy manufacturers throughout the United States and around the world. What does midden mean?
Midden is basically, it's not a burial mound.
Mm-hmm.
It's what the early natives they would make refuse piles, basically. And they would, just throw all their stuff in it. And it's Florida. It's a beautiful place, so everybody migrates down here, including the natives. These were the Timucuans and the Tocabega Indians around our area that no people list themselves as being of that descendant of those tribes anymore because they got wiped out pretty much by the Spanish and the early colonists. But they left all these mounds everywhere, and when people started moving in, they said, "Oh, hey, this is beautiful weather. Let's plow these down and just put stuff up."
Oh, heavens.
And that's what happened with the early cities here. So there's not as many mounds as there should be, and a midden is just that.
Mark, stand by. You and I have to take our first break for this hour. X-Zone Nation, our guest of this hour is Mark Midden. His website is EerieFlorida.com. That's www.EerieFlorida.com. And Mark and I will return on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Is it science or is it magic? Once a magical thing has been scientifically proven, is it no longer magic? Or is magic simply the science of tomorrow? Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, on The Science of Magic, a syndicated radio program dedicated to combining the science and magic of today's dynamic and controversial topics to co-create new solutions. By triangulating information from today's leading experts from the scientific and magical fields, we uncover expansive and evolutionary truths you won't find anywhere else. Join us daily on the X Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, as I interview the shared thoughts with the amazing guests from both science and magic. The resulting knowledge is unprecedented. As a gift to you, the listener, past episodes can be accessed on our website free of charge at thescienceofmagic.net.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Exonation, Mark Muncy is our special guest, and I've got to tell you something. If you're in Florida, if you're into the weird, the strange, the bizarre, or no matter where you are listening to the X Zone Radio Show, I strongly suggest you get a copy of Eerie, Florida. Visit www.eerieflorida.com. All right, we've talked about UFOs. We've talked about an exploding member of the clergy. We've talked about a monster that lives under a trestle. How about lake monsters? Any lake monsters?
Oh, there are numerous monsters that go all the way back to the early days of European explorers that with their Indian guides would talk about the great beast that lives in the lake, and that was up near Lake Maggiore, which is near Orlando area, and Sanford. And then there's the beast from Lake Helen Blazes, which us Floridians, we like to name our places really colorfully. And there's another, the Lake Astor beast, which is supposed to be very similar to Nessie. He kind of popped up around the time of Nessie Mania. But our most famous is on the St. Johns River and Lake Monroe, where it kind of bottoms out, is the great Pinky, the sea serpent. And Pinky was named because in one of his most famous sightings, the family that saw him, he pops his head up out of the water, about 3 feet out of the water, turns to look at him, and has kind of 2 eye stalks. His eyes are on, either right under him, so they might have been horns, but they were moving. And he had a big shell on his back, a big gray shell, but he was the color of boiled shrimp. And that was what stuck with the press. And so he became known as Pinky the Sea Monster. And he was seen a lot, all the way up to the late 80s. And now there's still sightings every once in a while of him, but they are definitely, not nearly as frequent as they used to be. Now that area has had, there's theories that it could be an albino seal or manatees were in that area a lot, so it could have been an albino manatee that the people were confusing, but pretty specific descriptions with a turtle shell and a pink-like snake head. So
yeah. Tell me about Robert the Doll.
Oh, one of our most famous denizens of Florida, all the way down in Key West, which the Indians used to call the Key of Bones, because that's where they buried everybody. So it's got enough creepy stuff. Robert the Doll, for those who don't know, was the inspiration for Chucky. Oh. He's a doll that lives in this house down there for the longest time. He had a owner who was named Robert Eugene, and he got this doll that was about the same size as him, dressed exactly like him, and and whenever things would go bad, he would say, Robert did it. And they'd be like, no, you're Robert. And he's like, no, I'm Eugene. I'm going to go by my middle name so we don't get confused. The doll is Robert. And so that's just the start. And, things go crazy for years and years and years. And now Robert is in the Fort East Morello Museum, and you can go see Robert the doll. But you have to be very respectful of Robert. You have to treat him properly with respect, and you have to ask his permission if you take his photo. Because if you don't, you will get the curse of Robert, and bad things will happen to you. And there is this wall behind him filled with letters of people writing to apologize to Robert, saying, please take off your curse. We're sorry we made fun of you. We're sorry we took your photo. And that was what fascinated me the most, more than the stories of Robert walking around and being seen and all that. I just love this curse, because one of my favorite letters was, Dear Sir Robert, I'm sorry I made fun of your stupid leather face. Leather is actually nice for a face. And I'm sorry I took your photo without permission. I've deleted it. Please remove your curse. We get the message. Please fix my eye, my Xbox, and my marriage.
Wow.
And I love that was the order he put them in.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, he's famous for down there. The managers there will say they lock him in at night. He's locked in his cage, his little glass case. And then some mornings they'll come back. He won't be in there. He'll be out front, just standing outside the museum with sand on his feet like he went for a walk.
Now that is creepy.
Yeah, he's a creepy doll. So we love him to death, and we love you, Robert. Much respect. But you are kind of a scary thing.
Wow. I also noticed in your book you had something on Mary Reeser, also known as the Cinder Lady.
Cinder Lady,
yeah.
Yes, the Cinder Lady, one of the most famous cases of spontaneous human combustion, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Here in St. Petersburg, it was a hot July day, and the 1950s, and this a widowed lady was having dinner with her son, and then he went home. The next morning, a man came to, and she was in her robe and sitting down in her chair. The next day, a man comes to deliver a package, can't get in, so she doesn't answer the door. So he goes to the landlord. Landlord comes over, the door is hot, fire. They immediately call the authorities.
Right.
Fire department shows up, breaks down the door. There's nothing there, just a smell of smoke, some signs of fire damage, and a dark, greasy spot on the ground where Mary Reeser and her chair once were, and all that's left is a foot, a shrunken skull, and a couple bits that were maybe teeth, and a pile of goo. And it's investigated by the FBI because what a crazy thing. Mm-hmm. Thousands of degrees for several hours would have been required to melt the body like that. And they can't figure out how it happened. There were theories of ball lightning. There were theories of all kinds of crazy stuff. And we were at the St. Petersburg Museum of History where they thankfully had the actual FBI files on the case. And we were able to access those with J. Edgar Hoover's signature on them. They eventually said it was candling, where she fell asleep with a cigarette and their body's fat and robes, act like a wick and just burned her to death. And that's why there was no other damage in the area. But even the guy who came up with that later said that it was the weirdest case he ever worked on, and if he had lived in the Dark Ages, he would have been murmuring something about black magic.
I guess. I really guess. But if the FBI said it would have taken a fire of several thousand degrees to do what was done, how can this other person say, well, it was because of candling? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and how could it have not burned down the entire apartment building?
Exactly.
Just a chair and some minor damage to the couch, and the clock on the wall melted slightly and stopped at 4:20 a.m., which is one of the reasons why people say that's the famous 420 comes from that more than a non-existent police code. So.
3,000 miles traveled without leaving the state of Florida.
Yeah, it was a crazy few weeks exploring all these great places and a lot of places we weren't allowed in. but we still got the stories on them, and we were able to find a lot of it through the historical archives. And my lovely and talented illustrator, Carrie Schultz, was able to make some of the monsters come to life that would only pose for blurry photos.
After having traveled 3,000 miles, in your opinion, what is the most scariest and or perplexing story that you have come across?
I will say the scariest story was the Dozier School for Boys. That is not a mystery. Of course, there are ghostly legends of the place and terrifying rules. It's up in the Panhandle. It's up in Marianna, Florida, and it's basically 100 years of state-sponsored child abuse.
Oh, geez.
It was a school that was for the worst of the worst. It was supposed to house 100 kids that couldn't be sent everywhere, and they gave it this colorful name, the Florida School for Boys, and they were sent there. But within 10 years, it had already overflowed to over 500 students and more, and they were prisoners. They were bad kids, but then the crimes became less and less. Kids were sent there for truancy, for being late to school. Kids were sent there for incorrigibleness. How do you describe that? You get sent to the worst school in Florida, locked away in a truancy school, and the allegations of abuse started almost immediately, and mostly from other students. But then, of course, the staff stories start coming into light. It closed in 2011 finally, and they started really investigating it and see how bad it really was. There was a Boot Hill on the school grounds that have 31 markers, but there are only 24 reported deaths at the school over 100 years. So they started doing digging, and they found over 55 bodies.
Good Lord.
All kinds of deaths. And the records are terrible. There's nothing in the records. They would just say, student no longer here, presumed escaped. And yet, they're still finding bodies. And the state's trying to sell the land. There's a great organization called the White House Boys, and those are people who survived this school. And they have their own support group, and they're trying to fight to get the truth out about this. And the state only this year made, the state Senate issued a formal apology to some of the survivors, saying, "Look, we're sorry." And it's still stuff's coming to light every day.
That is a travesty.
Yeah, it's the darkest story, and it's like I said, we could have talked more about the ghosts. We could have talked that there's the White House, which was the infamous building they built that was originally a solitary confinement, but it was where they turned on industrial fans to turn down the screams, and that's where they tortured the boys and would beat them to as many times as they could with the whip. And they'd only know how many times they'd been beat because they'd wake up in the morning after blacking out, and the kid in the cell next to them had counted the lashes for them. It's terrifying. The White House Boys have a wonderful website, whitehouseboys.org, and if you can help them, they'd love it. But if nothing else, just help read some of their stories that they are using for therapy, and it'll give you nightmares for weeks.
There are other stories like that. Here in Canada, there is one in Quebec where it was an orphanage, and the children were called the Duplessis kids because it was during the time of Premier Duplessis, the premier of the province of Quebec, and stories just like you were relating to us, very similar. Yeah, travesty.
Terrible stuff. Yeah. And Professor Kimberly of USF is leading the archaeological expeditions into it, but she's having to fight the people who own the property at every level. We got out there. We got some beautiful pictures of the place, but even then we couldn't get past the gate. They wouldn't let us in, even knowing that we were just trying to see some of the historical markers that are there, because in 2008 they actually started acknowledging this stuff and put up a historical marker, but you're not allowed to go visit it because it's on private property.
Why wouldn't the government treat it as a crime scene and expropriate it?
That's the question. Why are they not allowing more investigations? There's a rumored second graveyard, and that the black students were buried in and the white students were buried in another one, but they aren't allowed to excavate that, because they don't know where it is, and it's a scary place. The government just wants to sell the land and sell it to a developer and
get rid of it.
That's what everybody's fighting.
Yeah. You know what? I love talking to people like you because not only are you an author, not only are you a researcher, but you're a historian. You keep the history alive, and my hat is off to you for that.
Well, thank you. That's what That's why the book is from History Press. We wanted to tie it into all the it's not just the legends, it's not just the monsters, it's the history behind them, why they are the way they are, and what those stories actually come from.
Mark, stand by. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. Exonation Mark Muncy's our guest. www.eerieflorida.com, and we'll be back after this break. Don't go away.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
How would you like to be able to read other people's minds? Well, the next best thing is here. When you know how to read a person's name, you know how the person thinks, feels, and behaves. Each letter in our name holds a key to unlock our true essence. Our name contains both our gifts and challenges in this lifetime. Nemology science discovers personality secrets hidden in the placement of the letters of our names, including the first and last impression people remember about us. Sharon shows us how to interpret the arrangement of letters as outlined in her book, Know the Name, Know the Person. Sharon Lynn Wyeth created Nemology science after 18 years of research and testing her theories, and has supported thousands of people around the world in understanding themselves and others better. You'll enjoy Sharon's unique teachings as she shares her system to learn the gifts behind your given birth name. Even if you don't like your birth name, there are jewels in this book. If you're thinking of changing your name, ready to name your child, or wanting to get along better with others, this is the book for you. If you'd like to improve your relationships and change your life for the better, get the book today, Know the Name, Know the Person, or visit www.knowthename.com. That's www.knowthename.com.
Hello, I'm Justina Marsh, and with my dad Pete, we are going to present a new show called Too Good to Be True. Together, we are aiming to discover more truths about this world and beyond. Do you have unanswered questions about the world? Do you ever wonder about aliens, conspiracy theories, or the universe? There are many shows discussing subjects such as pyramids or UFOs, but we want to relay this information based on our own research, including from spiritual means. Hopefully, listeners will be helped with their own beliefs and will appreciate the psychic insights that add to the previous research and information. We both look forward to sharing this insight and beginning this journey with our listeners. Visit xzbn.net for more information about when to listen.
Ancient prophecies, legends, and current events indicate we're entering a high-frequency era supporting enlightenment. During expansive times, old rules fail, necessitating access to the ever-shifting currents of life for guidance. There's an ancient form of shamanism through which we can obtain the information we need. I'm Gwilda Wieka, founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Art School, with a great new provision for those interested in spiritual evolution and personal empowerment. Galactic Shamanism, Art of the Ancients, Key to Tomorrow, is an upcoming series of leading-edge online affordable classes designed to guide and support you and your family during these times of transition. Embrace the magic. Empower your life. Study Galactic Shamanism at findyourpathhome.com.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back, everyone. Mark Muncy is our special guest, www.eerieflorida.com. And let me ask you something, Mark. How eerie is Florida?
Oh, well, that was the point. We ran the haunted house for so long, and we were collecting all these stories for, nearly 3 decades. And because I was trying to base the ghosts and monsters in our haunted house on local legends. And so it's pretty scary. We had quite a stack, and we had to narrow them down for the book. So we've got kind of a top 25 in the book, if you will, of some of the creepiest and spookiest stories we could find.
Now, I know in Florida there's the skunk ape.
Oh, yes. There's a few different varieties of them here. That was
really?
One of the things we found while researching it, is that he's our Bigfoot, he's our Sasquatch, but down in the Everglades, there's one that's kind of more docile and more, just hides from people, harder to see. They seem to be a little thinner and more orangutan colored and such. And then the ones in the Ocala National Forest, one of the largest forests in America, they are a bit more aggressive and a bit more violent. And they all have that terrible smell because they sleep in swamps and bogs, and that's where they got the nickname skunk ape. We kind of wish they were called swamp apes or something like that, but, skunk ape kind of sticks.
Yeah.
And then up in the Panhandle are the ones that seem to be a bit more like the new version, the dogmen. They seem to have like pointed snouts and, and perky ears, and they also seem to be a bit more aggressive. So it was fascinating to learn. There's so many different varieties.
When it comes to ghost stories throughout Florida, are there a lot of ghost stories? I had somebody on the show many years ago who, this has nothing to do with ghosts, by the way, but it just came to mind, the Coral Castle.
Oh, yeah. We talk about the Coral Castle in the book. It's America's Stonehenge.
Yes.
A glorious, creation by a man who weighed 150 pounds, built in the time of the Model T without, any modern tools and such. And he lifted stones, 30 tons and has them resurrected. And they've survived more hurricanes than anybody. And it's a beautiful place, even if he didn't build it with supernatural powers like some claim, but it's still a monument to what one man can do either way. But as for ghosts, Florida is filled. Every beach town has a ghost tour, and St. Augustine, Key West, you name it. Even here in Tampa Bay, we've got quite a little cottage industry in ghost tours.
Why do you think the paranormal is still such a hot commodity, generating so much money each and every year?
It's a good question. I mean, our book was definitely from demand. We were, we were researching these things, and suddenly, we would post about them, and people would go, "Hey, I've never heard of that legend. I live right here." And we were like, "Well, here it is." And and then the next thing you know, they're saying, "Well, we're there's a tour about it. We didn't even know." And so I think it's just that fascination with the unknown. Everybody wants there to be more to life.
What is your personal view, and why did you get involved in the paranormal?
Well, it goes a long way back. That's the first time I've been asked that. It was a long time ago. I was living in a house up in Dayton, Ohio, and went up into the attic one day, and there was a weird black shape in the middle of the attic, and looked up at me with some odd eyes. It's my earliest memory I have, and I just remember running and screaming, and that's the only thing I remember of that. And so it's kind of fascinated me my whole life from there.
I'd run like hell too, my friend. I really would. I've been down to Gulf Breeze, investigating the Gulf Breeze UFO sightings, and I've heard all the stories about Walt Andrus. What is your take as a professional researcher in Florida?
My take is I do believe that there's no doubt there was a UFO flap in the 80s with 200-plus sightings that were reported. Now, this is Eglin Air Force Base. This is Pensacola Naval Base. They're both right there. Could have been anything that people were seeing. Was aliens? Who knows? I do believe the Ed Walters stuff was probably, he kind of banked in on it, and they debunked him. They found the model in his attic and all that. So, and he of course claims that it was all a setup. He's been set up. That really didn't, have any of that. So, it's a he said, she said.
Mm-hmm.
There's a kid who's come forward and said he helped them do it. So, it's a little, he's got a lot to live up to. But that still doesn't discount so many other sightings in the area. And to this day, the USOs, the unidentified submerged objects that become UFOs, where they fly out from under boats. Some of the stories we got from captains up there was just amazing to us. And, I mean, they believe it to themselves 100%. So I give it some credence. There's definitely something going on up there.
One of the questions I always raised when talking to people who had investigated the Gulf Breeze sightings is, how come nobody mentions the NASA launch of the Pegasus vehicles that coincide perfectly with the date and times of all the different sightings that Walt Andrus talked about?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's just it. There's plenty of natural reasons for it. Some of them were classified at the time, some of them not so classified. So, yeah, we think that one's more a terrestrial phenomena.
Yeah.
But, what is it? Who knows? I remember driving home one day seeing a flying saucer being escorted by F-16s over my car, and I was like, oh, my gosh, they're finally announcing it. It's real. And turned out that was the debut of the stealth fighter.
Yep.
And they were debuting it at MacDill Air Force Base, and it looked exactly like a saucer. So,
that's right, and the same thing happened over Area 51. Everybody was there taking photographs of these craft with doing impossible maneuvers. And what was even more perplexing to those who were there who had Doppler radars on their vehicles is that they couldn't pick up the target. And there you go. The very next day, these craft were on their way to the first desert storm.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And that's just it. That's why we think that's a bit more terrestrial. It's just something we're not ready to know yet.
Yeah, many questions out there. We have to actually, in my opinion, define that line between national security and hype. And I think the media has done their fair share of, playing both sides of the coin when it comes to that as well.
Yeah, always.
Now, being in Florida, you're close to the Bermuda Triangle. Any stories about that?
Oh, of course. The Bermuda Triangle is as important to Florida as just about anywhere else. We've also got little triangles that are well known, like the Tampa Triangle was even a book a number of years ago, over nearly 30 years ago, and they had their own series of disappearances and unusual stuff on this coast.
Right.
And so it's the question is really, where does it begin? Where does it end? There's all kinds of disappearances, and the boats, the planes, all that. Everybody's off course. Everybody's having weird stuff. It's, of course, again, it's one of those. Most of them can be explained with just navigational issues and other things like that, especially back in the day. But it's a unique phenomena to the area.
It certainly is. St. Augustine is the oldest city in the U.S. and full of ghost stories, but you talk about something else. Share that with us.
Oh, yeah. We tried to put some of the basic ghosts in there, the famous ones, like Lily's Room at the St. Francis Inn and a bunch of other great ghosts. But we talked about Augustin Verreau, who was the bishop of St. Augustine, and he was from Le Puy, France. Back in the early 1800s, he helped found pretty much every church that you find in the South, any of the Catholic churches in the South, for the early days of the U.S. and the early days of Florida as a state. This guy was beloved by many. He founded a sisterhood back in France, and he was one of the first guys to bring the freed slaves into the Catholic Church and tell everybody to reach out to him. So, just a really great man.
Yes.
He passes away in the summer of 1876, and it's June, and then the church reaches out to him. He reaches out to the people there and say, he wants to be buried in St. Augustine. We understand that, but people are coming from all over the world to see this man, so you have to keep the body out for for a viewing. So it's June, it's Florida, it's hot. So they decide to put the body on ice because at this point embalming's still very new. The church really kind of frowned on it still. So they put him on ice. They put him in a hole. That wasn't working. They did the straw with ice. That wasn't working. So they get this brilliant idea to build a metal casket for him and put the ice in there with him. And they're like, well, we got to keep it open, so we put a glass seal on the front of it. They put a glass window so you can still see the body. But what they've built is a pressure cooker.
Oh, heavens.
So days pass, 90-some-odd degrees in June in Florida, and the gases are building inside him as he's decomposing. And, of course, the stories kind of differ on if it was right after the ceremony or near the end of the ceremony. But, yes, the glass cracks, he explodes, and so he is known as the exploding bishop of St. Augustine.
Oh, gosh. Oh, heavens. Is it true that...
Yeah, that's definitely a great story.
Oh, my gosh. Is it true that one story may have actually influenced the legend of Slender Man?
Oh, yes. We've actually kind of got it almost to when it did. There's a legendary creature in Tampa called the Trestle Bridge Monster. And trestle bridges are, train track bridges. Yeah. This one happens to be near a school and goes right over the Hillsborough River. And there's a lot of deaths associated with this bridge, either suicides or just missing people. And a lot of times it's kids. Kids cross this bridge because it's a shortcut. They don't have to walk around the road and, and go a half mile out of their way. They can just cross the trestle bridge. Well, it's a trestle bridge. There's trains on it. It's dangerous. But the legend is that there's this creature that lives on the bridge, and there's a body that you see, and it looks kind of like a guy in a suit, and it's just sitting on the body, and it's like, help me, help me. And you go out to try to help the guy, and you get halfway out onto the bridge over the Hillsborough River, and then suddenly the body raises, and it's like an anglerfish. It's a giant sea spider with crazy legs, and it's lifting the body. The body is just like this thing it holds in front of it, and it lures you to your death on this bridge. Now, Slender Man, internet legend, was created for a Photoshop contest, and he was just a guy in a suit. Well, they put him onto the Creepypasta website, which is like a Wikipedia, and people were adding to the legends and creating stories, and that's where Slender Man just took off like wildfire and went viral, literally. And we believe some of the posts where he suddenly started getting tentacles out of his back or spider-like legs out of his back to grab his victims. We think that came from some of the kids at that Tampa high school who went, hey, this looks just like that guy, Slender Man. That just sounds just like our monster. And so we think that's how it just got edited into the mythos.
I just had a shiver with that last one. That was kind of
it's a creepy story.
Yeah, it certainly is.
My illustrator, Kerry Schultz, has an amazing illustration for that in the book. You have to see it.
I look forward to it. And in fact, when I was a kid, we used to cross a trestle bridge from Chambly to the other side of the riverbank where I lived, and a lot of strange stories about that trestle bridge as well. Mark, you and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Please stand by. Exonation Mark Muncy is our guest. He is the creator of Hellview Cemetery, a charity haunted house in Central Florida that was so infamous it was banned by the city of St. Petersburg. What a bunch of morons, banning something that would really help people. I can say that. I don't live there. It's okay. We'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. This hour talking about Eerie, Florida.
The Earth is under ever-increasing pressure from untenable lifestyles and growing populations. Yet, viable answers seem in short supply. What if I told you there's an ancient form that can empower you to take charge of your life? What if your entire family could be enfolded and supported by life itself, finding safe passage through challenging times? I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Art School, with great news: an upcoming series of leading-edge online affordable classes based in an ancient form of shamanism, easily learned and used by your entire family. Galactic Shamanism, Art of the Ancients, Key to Tomorrow are a series of online adult and children's lessons instructing your entire family on natural law, how to cooperate with and be supported by the powers of the universe. Visit findyourpathhome.com to find these unique and powerful classes.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Are you curious? Do you want to learn more about how the world works and have fun at the same time? Study coincidences with me, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, on my Connecting with Coincidence radio show, here on the XZBN network. Listen to Jungians theorize, statisticians randomize, true believers evangelize, while I categorize. I dance to the rhythm of coincidences. People who experience me see more of them. Maybe something on the show matches a thought in your mind. Let us know. Expand your mind to the weirdness happening around you. Synchronicity spoken here, there, and everywhere. For more information, put Connecting with Coincidence in your search engine and find my website, my social media sites, and my blog.
What is truth? Historically, we viewed things as either being true or false. Now, as we enter a more expansive era, we find the question is not, is it true, but rather, how true is it? I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, host of the Science of Magic Radio, a syndicated, internationally broadcast radio program dedicated to uncovering this ever-expanding truth. Join me daily on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, as I interview today's leading experts from the fields of science and magic to uncover the hidden truth between the lines drawn in the sand. What we unearth in our discussions is not only amazing, but totally unprecedented. You won't want to miss a single episode. In service to our listeners, past episodes can always be found on our website with our compliments at thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome back, everyone. Mark Muncy is our special guest this hour, www.eerieflorida.com. You know, we've talked about a lot of subjects tonight, and as I said to you off air, having a researcher, an author, and a historian all at the same time with us is a unique opportunity for our listeners to get the whole story, the real story, just not the hearsay and not the supposition, but the work that you and your fiancé have done in bringing this book to life, so to speak. So thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. This has been great.
All right, so let's get a few more things done. We've got about 10 minutes, my producer just told me. There are a number of national parks and historical sites. Which ones stand out the most, in your opinion?
We really enjoyed Devil's Mill Hopper. It's an ancient sinkhole on top of another ancient sinkhole, so it's this super deep
sinkhole
place that goes down. Of course, it has a great Indian legend behind it that they killed a demon there. Of course, the name Devil's Mill Hopper comes from when they first found the early settlers in the area. As I said, Floridians like to name things colorfully. They found this place, and they saw these weird bones and these rivers that just disappear into the bottom, so they were convinced it was the entrance to the underworld. Of course, the bones were dinosaur bones and the like. And so it's just outside of Gainesville. Great place to visit. But the place that stuck out to us was a place up on Fernandina Beach near Amelie Island, and that was there's a legend there called the park is the Eggins Creek Greenway. It's this beautiful nature trail. It's got a few different ecosystems all within a few miles. It's got some scrub land. It's got some wetlands. But across the bridge to this old part of the park that is no longer on their map, it is no longer part of the official Eggins Creek Greenway, is this old nature trail for the high school at Fernandina Beach. It was a student nature trail, and that even we couldn't find any actual records of that actually ever being a student nature trail, although there are faded signs for it all over this place. But the legend there is of a grave of a witch and her pet demon named Wiccademus, which is probably just one of the greatest names ever for a demon. And the story goes, if you follow this trail, you go to this live oak tree, and there's a stone at the bottom of the tree, and that marks where the witch was buried from a lost colony that may predate Roanoke. And it's not without some evidence to back it up, but it's still unlikely. But what a great story. And you go there, and you say the name Wiccademus, and if you say it a few times, the winds will roar, the ground will shake, and you will feel the demon's power. And it's always say it 3 times to mock the Trinity and all that in these legends. So, well, we went there. We had to do some legend tripping of our own. We went there. We saw the stone. We said the name 3 times. And sure enough, the wind picked up. It was crazy. The moss, the Spanish moss through the live oaks is blowing everywhere. We tried to take a video, and the wind is just roaring so much it couldn't show. Now, we have these weird freak winds and stuff hits Florida all the time, so it could have been nothing, but it was just the timing couldn't have been better. It was great.
I understand one of the oddest places that you visited was the Cassadaga.
Oh, Cassadaga. Sad to hear about Tom Petty today, because he actually wrote a song about the place. In 78, he did a song called Cassadaga, and it's about this, as he called it, my favorite quote, 35 acres of weird people in Florida. It's this great town. It was founded by a psychic as a commune, a spiritual commune, and to this day it is considered the mecca of mediums and psychics. And there's a beautiful hotel there, and they have psychics there all the time, and they try to embrace that part of their life, but they hide the dark side. Until recently, they've started doing ghost tours and stuff like that, because I think they've realized that's where the tourist dollars are.
Yep.
But for the longest time, they tried to hide that. And even on their website, they still say there is no graveyard in Cassadaga, because everybody goes and asks about the graveyard. And the reason everybody asks about the graveyard is because in the graveyard, there's a chair that was built by the devil, supposedly.
Okay, you've got to tell me about this chair.
It's called the Devil's Chair.
Okay.
And it's you go to there is a graveyard, but it's not in Cassadaga. It's next to Cassadaga. And it's called the Cassadaga Lake Helen Cemetery, because there's a town, Lake Helen, right next to it. And so if you go into that cemetery, there are mourning chairs, which were common in the 1800s, and so where people just built brick chairs for people to sit while they're waiting, mourning their fallen.
Right.
And there's a few there, but there's one in particular. It's a red brick chair, and it's called the Devil's Chair. And then it has some graffiti on it that's been carved into it. It says Lucifer, and there's one we saw that's stone that just says "Help me." And supposedly, if you sit in that chair at midnight, the devil will come and visit you and grant you a wish. Well, you can't sit in that chair at midnight. It's private property, and you will get arrested. Someone will visit you. It'll be the cops. But another part of the legend is if you leave a beer there overnight, it will be drunk by morning, and the devil will give you a wish. So,
well, sure, because the beer is drunk by the cops who would come to arrest you.
The cops of security are drinking the beer, and they do patrol it. It was funny because there was one guy we talked to who said, "Oh yeah, I went there on Halloween night, and I was there, and we were staying out. We snuck in late, and we went to sit in the chair, and we saw robed, creepy figures coming at us, dark figures coming out of the shadows, and it was the cops, and he got arrested for trespassing." So definitely don't try to do that one at home.
Yeah.
And the other part of the legend is if you sit in the chair, no matter how hot it is in Florida, the chair will be cold and will be cool to the touch. And we went there in a July day, and it was super hot, and we sat in the chair, and the chair was nice and cool. But then again, there is a reason why we build chimneys out of brick, because they definitely conduct heat a little better than most.
They certainly do. One quick question for you, because we've got to say so long in about 3 minutes. Have you heard of any strange or weird stories about Cape Canaveral or Cape Kennedy?
There's some stories of a haunted launch pad. It's actually the one that SpaceX recently bought. Mm-hmm. I think it was called Launch Pad 34. And there's don't have my notes on that one in front of me. But that one, there's a haunted launch pad where the Apollo blew up, they still see men like in spacesuits climbing into the rocket. There's a very famous Doctor Who kind of took that and made fun of that legend in an episode. And there's also some odd sightings of unusual things in that area. What's fun in that area is there's a famous swamp witch that actually has a song called The Swamp Witch. Blackwater Hattie is from not too far from there. But there's always stories everywhere.
Now, aren't there also stories about Indian River?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if we have time to get into that if we're running out of time. But yeah, Indian River has some wonderful legends too. There's a shaman there that protects the weather and keeps the storms at bay. There's, of course, the Indian River burial sites are notorious of bog people and some other stuff like that. So. Yeah, I mean, there's something everywhere, and that's why we've got more books coming. So.
Well, I was just going to ask you, what's next for you and your illustrator, a.k.a. Carrie Schultz,
we are definitely working on a follow-up.
Yeah.
Which will probably we've got a lot of adjectives. We've got Eerie, Florida. Our next one might be Strange, Florida. But keep an eye on EerieFlorida.com for all that, and the book's available at your friendly local bookstore or anywhere online.
Let our listeners know how they can contact you if they have stories that have happened to them, or they had experiences that they've had happen to them while in Florida, and they'd like to get the story to you and carry you. How can they do that?
Well, basically, you can email the website at EerieFlorida.com. There's a link to mail Mark at EerieFlorida.com. You can also message us on our Facebook page or our Twitter. We are pretty good about getting back to everybody. And we'd love to hear from everybody's stories of trips to Florida and unusual things they found, and we love to hear them.
In your book, is there a way that the readers can get a map of Florida and actually map a tour for themselves?
Well, the book is written there's a map in the front. It's an old map from the 50s. And we kind of follow a trail. If you read the stories in order, you start at the northeast and then work your way down across the I-4 corridor back over to the west coast, then back across Alligator Alley out and all the way to Miami and back down to the Keys. Then we kind of have a jog back up to the Panhandle because it didn't really work otherwise. But yeah, you can kind of follow it, and that's the whole purpose of the book. So we'd love for everybody to follow that because that's what we did.
Mark, again, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to having you back on the show to discuss more of the Eerie, Florida stories and to find out what you and Carrie have been up to since we last talked.
That sounds wonderful. Have a great day.
You too, Mark. Exonation Mark Muncy has been our guest this hour. www.eerieflorida.com. Yeah, some spooky stuff there, wasn't there? I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget the Treasure Coast Para-Unity Conference, November 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I will be there, as I am the Master of Ceremonies and a lot more. And we're going to be broadcasting the 3-day event live on pay-per-view with our partners, Simul TV. More about that at www.xzoneradiotv.com. X-Zone, www.xzonechannel.com. And, of course, simultv.com. I am Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone. I'll be back on the other side of this news break at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour. Don't go away.